I'm John McKee, editor of Messianic Apologetics, Messianicapologetics.net. And I would like to welcome you to this episode of Messianic Insider. This is your theology and news roundup for April the 24th, 2025. Certainly, there is a great deal taking place in the world right now between the death of Pope Francis, the Middle East peace process, Iran, Israel, Hamas, and the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. So we do have a lot to go through today. All right, let's start with our theology roundup. I'd like to point out one of our ministry's most important resources, what is often considered to be our flagship book, The New Testament Validates Torah. The New Testament Validates Torah is an important apologetic study that will benefit Messianic believers and evangelical Christians alike. There is literally nothing in today's Messianic movement that has compiled as much information on Torah relevance for God's people into a single book. And today, we're going to be discussing the issue of works of law. There is a significant chapter in New Testament Validates Torah. What are works of the law? Particularly some of the discussions which have been taking place over the past several decades from the new perspective of Paul, and also, by extension now, Paul within Judaism. So if you don't have a copy of the New Testament Validates Torah, this was recently updated in 2024, so a little less than a year ago. It also has some appendices dealing with the present status of Torah, some of the developments involving Torahism, pro-Nomian Christianity, how we should approach God's Torah as Messianic people. It tries to summarize where things stand within the orbit of the Messianic community. All right, so we're going to be discussing the issue of works of law. Now, if you will go to the Messianic Apologetics website very quickly, so that's Messianicapologetics.net. Here, if you'll click on the tab FAQs, these are all listed in alphabetical order. Scroll down to the letter W. So here you'll see works of the law. Click there and a PDF file will open up. Works of the law. And the question is, I have heard a teaching which stated that the term works of the law actually refers to rabbinical extra-biblical commandments. Is there any substantiation for this? Now, the Apostle Paul's usage of the term works of law 3 times in Galatians 2:16 is the first usage of ergon namu in the Apostolic Scriptures, New Testament. Works of law is used a total of 6 times in Galatians 2:16, 3:2, 5:10, and is only used elsewhere in his letter to the Romans 3:20 and 28. Generally speaking, common Christian interpretations of this phrase have advocated that ergon namu, or works of law, means observing the law, New International Version, meaning some kind of general Torah observance. It has mainly been via some proposals made by the new perspective of Paul in theological studies that ergon namu takes on something different or more specific than just rote observance of the Mosaic law. These propositions have significantly aided some Messianic understanding of Paul's words, as Paul was seen to be criticizing a sectarian observance of the Torah, which impeded God's mission of blessing all nations. Genesis 12:2, Galatians 3:8 and 9, rather than general observance of the Torah itself. Of course, there is considerable discussion as to whether or not when Paul used ergon namu, he was really connecting it to some of the ideas present in Maaseh HaTorah in 4Q MMT from the Dead Sea Scrolls. After defining some of the major rules of the Qumran community, this document ends with the statement. Now, we have written to you some of the works of the law, the Hebrew Miksat Maaseh HaTorah, those which we determined would be beneficial for you and your people, because we have seen that you possess insight and knowledge of the law. Okay, so that is some of the basic issue in Pauline studies today as it concerns the terminology works of law. And if you've been in the Messianic sphere of influence for any amount of time, by now you should have encountered some discussion at some study somewhere which has proposed that the terminology works of law does not just mean observing the law as it appears in the NIV. So, for example, if you have a copy of the complete Jewish Bible, you will see the terminology ergon namu likely rendered along the lines of the system which perverts the Torah into legalism, because C.E.B. Cranfield, Charles Cranfield, who produced a significant 2-volume commentary on Romans, made the proposal that ergon namu meant some kind of legalism. This was before some of the proposals put out by the new perspective of Paul, namely theologians such as the late James D.G. Dunn, or more commonly N.T. Wright, Tom Wright. So that kind of summarizes what the issue is. And there are some significant places within the Pauline letters where the terminology ergon namu, works of law, is used. Traditionally, this has been approached as just observing the law per the New International Version, the NIV. Yet over the past several decades, via the background of the Dead Sea Scrolls, document 4Q MMT, and its usage of Maaseh HaTorah, which means works of law, it has been concluded by many that when Paul used ergon namu, he used it with this in mind. So, if you look through the Qumran document, 4Q MMT, it uses the terminology Maaseh HaTorah in view of the keeping, listen to me very carefully, of the Qumran community's club rules, or their halakha for membership. So, for the Qumran community, you perform these Maaseh HaTorah, works of the Torah, works of law. You will be reckoned as a member of their group, their sect. So when Paul used ergon namu, or works of law, he was not, in fact, just referring to observing the law generally, but rather he used it with specific halakha in mind for apparent true membership among God's people. Now, the main issue in Galatians especially was what? The main issue confronted in Paul's letter to the Galatians was ritual proselyte circumcision by the non-Jewish believers in order to truly reckon them as members of God's own. So, if they wanted to be justified, meaning be reckoned as members of God's own, according to the influencers or Judaizers, they had to go through ritual proselyte circumcision. They had to be observing works of law. Paul said, no, you're not justified as members of God's own by works of law. Instead, you are reckoned as members of God's own by faith in God and recognizing the action of Yeshua the Messiah and being sacrificed for human sinners. Customarily, though, advocates of the new perspective of Paul, and likely also Paul within Judaism, I was definitely trained in the new perspective of Paul theology of James Dunn and N.T. Wright when I was at seminary. Advocates of the new perspective of Paul will often conclude that works of the law, not referring to general keeping of the Mosaic Torah, especially not its high ethical or moral principles, but they will instead conclude that it spoke of specific, what they would regard as Jewish identity markers, such as Sabbath, festivals, kosher, and circumcision. Now, some in Messianic Judaism may adopt this approach as well, but others may approach works of law in view of the actual issue in Galatians, mainly involving ritual proselyte circumcision for inclusion in God's community, something which is, of course, actually reckoned by faith in God and now in his Messiah. So that kind of summarizes the academic discussion and debate surrounding works of law. Yet, if you have actually heard someone say that works of law just refers generically to rabbinical tradition, then the person is likely not at all engaged with any academic discussion over this matter. And indeed, the place to start would be, read through a book like The New Perspective on Paul by James Dunn, the book Justification by N.T. Wright, to just get familiar with how these proposals have affected people over the past 30 to 50 years. So I really want to thank those of you who have asked me recently to address works of law. And indeed, as we go episode to episode, because we are doing this 5 times a week, most of the theology roundup topics are things which I just kind of run into and the Holy Spirit just prompts me to discuss, refer to a book we've got or a FAQ or an article we've got. But your feedback is definitely appreciated and definitely taken into consideration. Okay, so our news roundup. To be certain, every day presents new issues in the news, religious, political, current events related. Most of these things are things which I run across passively on social media, mostly on X, formerly Twitter, but also Instagram, possibly Facebook, possibly another venue. And yes, if you have something you'd like to send me, please direct message me with that. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, this is something from yesterday, the 23rd of April. And it's a little bit of local news, but this is the kind of thing which is going to affect more and more people here in the United States. Attorney General Ken Paxton demands records from Plano ISD Independent School District over Epic City ties. Now, Epic City, scroll down here, Epic City is one of these proposed Islamic communities. It's out in a place called Josephine, Texas, Collin County, Grayson County, I think. But these kinds of communities are not just popping up in the state of Texas, they're popping up all over North America. And they're intended to be semi-autonomous, Islamic, quasi-no-go zones. And of course, the big concern many people have is, are they going to be hotbeds of terrorism? Are they going to be hotbeds of Sharia? And here you have the Attorney General, Ken Paxton, here in Texas, and he's going to be pushing back. He's going to be fighting back. For the past several months, local officials ignored our warnings. They stonewalled concerned parents. They dismissed citizen concerns. But thanks to relentless grassroots pressure, your voices are being heard. Yeah, we're in a war against Islamic extremism here in North America. We don't know if Western Europe is retrievable or not at this point, but a state like Texas, where these groups have specifically targeted their energy and their resources, Texas is going to push back, and it's going to be a sight to be seen, let me tell you. Okay, yesterday from Charisma, the 23rd of April, this article, is Elon Musk one of the 10 kings of the end times? Now, there are a lot of question marks, and I definitely have them as well, involving Elon Musk's association with the Trump campaign, Doge, even though I do think searching out government waste is very important. But there are a lot of questions about Elon Musk, Tesla, some of the things he's been involved with wanting to implant, technology into human beings. Elon Musk is not a believer, but is he one of the 10 kings or not? That's something which will just be seen. But here you see a lot of speculation involving SpaceX, involving the other things he's involved with technology. Yeah, SpaceX. Okay. Elon Musk, a modern-day candidate for prophetic power. Elon Musk is no ordinary entrepreneur. He is a billionaire, a visionary, and an influencer who now holds the keys to global communication, space access, and advanced surveillance systems. According to biblical prophecy, 10 figures will rise to power in the last days, leaders who are not kings in the traditional sense, but powerful influencers who will yield their authority to the Antichrist. So they're not saying that, this article is not saying Elon Musk is the beast, but rather he's going to help with the rise of the beast. Who knows? But, I am someone who believes that we live in a time where we have to make the most of the freedoms and liberties God has given us. We cannot take them for granted, and we have to be able to tell the Lord that in spite of some of the threats, in spite of some of the concerns people had, we stayed true to the mission of God, which is to declare the good news, see people transformed, forgiven of their sins, set on a path of holiness, but also we're aware of the signs of the time. So, yeah, Elon Musk got a lot of question marks around him, and I'm not surprised Charisma came up with this. Okay, this is from Open Source Intel yesterday on X. Interesting, Lebanese MP Walid Bahraini says he no longer supports Hezbollah, saying it has been defeated in the war and should lay down its arms. He added that building ties with Israel could help solve Lebanon's problems. Yeah, who is the real cause of some of the problems in the Middle East? The poor Lebanese. Of course, we know Lebanon was a major stronghold of Christianity in the Middle East at one point, but even Islamic Lebanese, they're probably beginning to figure out that Hezbollah's presence in their country is not good. And perhaps Israel can be used to help bring rebuilding, some prosperity back to Lebanon. All right, here's a post which I think is important. We know right now that following the death of Pope Francis, there's a huge amount of speculation regarding who the next pope is going to be. This is one of the top, I think, half dozen contenders, Cardinal Robert Serra, who is from Guinea. He is someone who is very conservative, very traditional. He actually converted to Catholicism from an animist background, if I am correct about this. Will he possibly be the next pope? And some people, of course, saying, because they're saying, well, maybe he's going to be the black pope, because, well, he's black. We don't know, but a lot of people are hoping that he is going to be the next pope because he is calling out, and I think legitimately so, how if Europe, Western Europe, does not return to some kind of Christian grounding, then it's lost and its culture is over. Between Europeans who have abandoned religion and between the mass migration from mainly Islamic countries. But we'll see. A lot of people are talking about the papacy right now. Hardly a surprise. Okay, Global Catalytic Ministries. This is from yesterday, the 23rd of April. What a name, Global Catalytic Ministries. I have no idea who these people are. I just saw the post, but we know that there have been discussions already regarding a truce between Israel and Hamas. The numbers of a truce for 5 to 7 years have been thrown out there. And so, of course, here you've got someone following prophecy, the end times, concluding recent developments surrounding a 5 to 7 year ceasefire proposal between Israel and Hamas demand our immediate attention. And then somebody quoting Daniel 9:27. What do you think? Indeed, our job is to simply watch and wait. Okay, another article from Charisma, the 23rd of April. Amanda Grace weighs in on Pope Francis. Is this an end times warning? Now, I don't know anything about Amanda Grace. I really don't follow the whole apostle, prophet crowd that much. But here, let's just read. Is the timing of Pope Francis's death the sign of something on the way? Recently, prophetic voice Amanda Grace chimed in with how she believes the timing of Francis's death during the end of Passover has greater implications in the spiritual realm than we could imagine. Pope Francis has died during Passover and the day after Easter, and Klaus Schwab, has stepped down from the Economic Forum, Grace says. Now, I don't put a lot of stock into people who get up there as prophets or whatever, but people are paying attention to current events. We don't know what's going to happen, but we do know that people are speculating. How much of the speculation is accurate? How much of the speculation is inaccurate? I don't know. And look, I am not somebody, just to clarify to some of you, I'm a continuationist. I believe in the ongoing validity and importance of the spiritual gifts, but I look at a lot of what takes place in the Pentecostal and charismatic movements with a lot of skepticism. But I am paying attention, and we will wait and see. All right, a few more stories. Okay, this is from the New York Post yesterday. President Trump issued a stark warning to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on Wednesday, saying Kiev's leader was in a dire situation and can have peace, or he can fight another 3 years before losing the whole country. What's going to happen with Russia and Ukraine? And I've said this multiple times already, but people in the Messianic community haven't really been able to discuss the fuller factors of the Russia-Ukraine conflict very easily, mainly because many Messianic Jewish believers have family or historical ties to both Russia and Ukraine. Some of them even come from Russia or Ukraine. One of the biggest Messianic Jewish communities outside of North America is in Ukraine and then in Russia. So that's why we have to proceed with a lot of caution. But what we should all be praying for as believers is that this conflict ends as soon as possible. 5,000 people are dying every week. In a peace agreement, in a truce, no one is going to get everything that they want. But we cannot see this conflict get any bigger or go on any further. It's not going to help the region. It's not going to help the Ukrainians. It's not going to help the Russians. It's certainly not going to help the global economic disposition. Okay, here's another one, and this is, there are a lot of people out there who follow, as I said a few moments ago, the prophet apostle crowd. Whether we like it or not, resources like Charisma are some of the most influential on contemporary Messianic people. So some of you at some point have at least passively encountered I'm going to use the term just as an adjective, prophetic viewpoints of the late Kim Clement. This is something which came across my feed yesterday. A prophetic shift is underway. The Pope has died. Iran is rising, and Kim Clement saw it all. Now, how much of this is accurate? How much of this is inaccurate? Some people regard the late Kim Clement as a prophet and that he spoke very accurate things. Other people wonder, why has there been a movement created around him, actually dissecting his, let's just say, words, his statements. Is this something which would have happened during the time of the biblical prophets like Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel? Would their followers have been, dissecting their words and everything else? I'm very skeptical of the prophetic movement that's out there that a lot of people in the Messianic community are very influenced by. But look, no matter how charismatic or not you may be, the Pope, Klaus Schwab, situation in Iran, likewise, the situation in Russia, Ukraine, it should get your attention. Okay, two more stories, and I just want to clarify, these are things which passively come across my feed and things that I think we need to be paying attention to. Another one from Global Catalytic Ministries. How should the church respond across the globe? The spiritual landscape is shifting. In places like London, entire neighborhoods are now majority Muslim. Will I ever want to travel to Europe again? I don't know. In the United States, entire cities are being shaped by Islamic influence. I have mentioned how in the state of Texas, you see some of these Islamic groups, purchasing large tracts of land and trying to form their own little communities. It's not limited to Texas. It's in other places as well. So if you live in North America, especially in the United States, see what is taking place in your region. Now, this concludes what was once considered the mission field over there is now moving into the heart of the West. The battle lines are being redrawn by Islamic ideologies and worldviews. Okay, and then finally, and this is something which I'm sure some of you have encountered, the video from the UAE Foreign Minister Sheikh Abdullah bin Zayed, where he spoke in English at a symposium saying that, we in the Middle East who are Islamic understand Islamic extremism. You in the West, especially Europe, do not understand it. And he predicted that Europe will be the hotbed of a lot of new Islamic extremism. Yeah. But here, this is the commentary from Hassan Sajwani from yesterday. Today, Jordan banned the Muslim Brotherhood, ceased their assets, and shut offices. So maybe we need to be paying attention to what some of these Arab countries, Islamic countries are doing with the Islamic extremists in their own midst. They're shutting them down. They're making them illegal. They're trying to curtail their influence. Now, is some of this done so whether it is the Jordanian royal family or the leaders of the UAE stay in power? Absolutely. But, it's also because of, in the study of religion, there are different interpretations of Islam, just as there are different interpretations of Christianity and different interpretations of Judaism, etc., etc. And yes, I think all of us probably need a refresher on Islamic history, Islamic theology. Not that we're going to become Muslim, but we need to better understand some of these different streams out there. And in this case, in the West, where we typically pride ourselves on free speech, we pride ourselves on freedom of religion, different groups are taking advantage of that. And what it means is that there's going to be a conflict. We're going to have to factor into the end times. And mind you, I know that a lot of people out there have shifted toward believing in an Islamic anti-Messiah or antichrist, away from some of the interpretations of the past 50 to 60 years, looking for a revived Roman Empire, a European beast. I'm someone who just tries to monitor everything. I don't know, but I do know that Islam is an issue which we have to monitor very closely. And it would be ironic, given what is taking place right now, especially in Western Europe, if maybe there's some truth in all of this, that it might be an Islamic beast rising out of Europe. That would be ironic. But we continue to watch and we continue to pray, because the focus of the last days, what's the focus of the last days? The focus of the last days is not on the kingdom of darkness. It's on the kingdom of light. It's on seeing Yeshua the Messiah return, the restoration of Israel, and the establishment of his reign from Jerusalem. And so we, as believers in him, have to align ourselves with that mission. What are we supposed to be doing? The kingdom of darkness is going to take care of itself, whether it's a European beast, whether it's a United Nations beast, an Islamic beast, or some other beast we haven't figured out yet. That's going to take care of us. We've got to monitor all these different venues in the world so we're not caught off guard. But what are we supposed to be focusing on? So there's a lot happening right now in the world, and I definitely appreciate your feedback. I've decided that it's probably best not to feature it on the live stream, because some of you all don't want your name, pop up. That's what StreamYard will do, but I do take your feedback seriously, and I appreciate it. And look, this is all part of what I like to call the ongoing conversation. We are working as limited human beings, reading God's word with, okay, Heavenly Father, what are you trying to communicate here? What are you trying to communicate there? And then when we factor it into current events, we know that things can change. There can be new information, and there can be new perspectives we have to consider. Because I can tell you, seeing a lot of different interpretations over the past 3 decades, being involved in the Messianic community, we've seen interpretations of prophecy change as new information has been presented. So if we approach these things as being an analyst, we won't be caught off guard when, well, obviously that's something to be disregarded. Like there are a lot of people out there who believe that Prince Charles, of course, now King Charles III, is going to be the anti-Messiah or antichrist. What's going to happen when he passes away? And he's obviously not. So a lot going on, and I really appreciate those of you who join us, especially now that we're going 5 times a week. As always, on behalf of Outreach Israel Ministries and Messianic Apologetics, I would like to sincerely thank you for your ongoing prayers, encouragement, and donations toward all of our ministry efforts. You can give online at outreachisrael.net/support. We'll see you again tomorrow with another episode of Messianic Insider. Until then, may God bless you. Shalom, and take care.